For more, let's bring in Texas Congressman McCaul. A lot has happened in the last hour or so here. The president telling me he's canceling this trip. He's not sending his people to all the way over to Pakistan. If they're not going to come back with anything, if the Iranians aren't serious, they can just call him over the phone. What's your reaction to that?
Well, I think the president didn't receive a serious proposal. It didn't deal with giving up enriched uranium. And I think wisely saying, look, I'm not going to waste my time with this if you're not going to negotiate in good faith. Now, I've been a critic of the Iranian regime for years, really since 1979. I don't think they're negotiating in good faith. It's dilatory tactics. They're going to try to drag this out, and they're never going to give up their nuclear capabilities at the end of the day. The president, as a first president to have the courage, all presidents before him after 1979 have said, we will not allow a nuclear Iran, but this president has stepped into Iran in a very courageous way to stop it. So I applaud him for that, and I think he's doing the right thing on this as well.
You know, I think you can't say this White House hasn't tried diplomacy, right? They've tried. We've seen these summits before. I mean, it's not new, and so canceling this one, I mean, it tells you a lot about where we are in terms of with the Iranians. Why can't the Europeans see it that way? I mean, they're always pushing for diplomacy, talk. That's not resulting in anything. Why can't they just get on board now?
Well, especially since 50% of their energy comes out of the Strait of Hormuz, right? So they import 50%. It's in their best interest. I think it's a grudge match against President Trump. But look, it's in their best interest as well. It's right in their backyard. And so they absolutely should join with us and put pressure on Iran. But, you know, the bottom line, Aisha, is what I think, as long as this regime is in power, you're never going to broker a deal that they're going to give up their nuclear quest for a bomb.
Right.
And as long as that regime's in power, and if they get the bomb, they will certainly use it.
What do you make of this grand tour that the Iranian foreign minister is now embarking on? He just left Pakistan, I believe, going to Oman, Russia. What is that about, and how does it play into what do we do? We've got this potential still on the books. POTUS trip to China. And we know there's questions about whether the Chinese are helping Iran.
Well, I think he's using this notoriety, this fame that he has right now to exploit the situation, win over friends and allies in the Middle East and maybe in Europe as well.
Well, they lost all their allies in the Middle East.
Right, and they basically bombed all their friends in the Middle East. So why would they want to come over and be on the side of Iran? I think hopefully everybody sees through that. I think the president's détente, if you will, meeting with China, my advice to him would be, you know, as a condition, a precondition of that meeting, he should ask China to stop equipping Iran with the technology and semiconductor chips that fund and back Iran against our targets.
Yeah, everyone's also focused on the Taiwan Strait. That's important too, because we want to know what the Chinese are thinking about that. I want to pull up a Fox News poll. We just got these released this week, and it shows where the current mood is in the country on military action against Iran. Right now, 45% of Americans support military action. That is up, actually, from 42% in March. 55% oppose it, and that is down. In the meantime, though, in the long run, people believe that now 36% believe that the U.S. is safer, that these military action, these strikes will make us safer. That is up from March when it was 33%. What do you make of, you know, the way the president is handling this? You know, we had been given some timelines, 5-6 weeks, and now we've gone beyond that, and you've got midterms around the corner. And I know there are Republicans, I talked to them privately, are worried about when they go back home and people are hurting when they go to the gas station or whatever it is. They want Republicans to talk about that.
Well, that is true. But I do think Americans do feel safer. We've destroyed their military-industrial complex. We've basically destroyed their nuclear facilities. They still have the enriched uranium, but they do feel safer. I do think most Americans want this to end. They don't want to see us get bogged down in another conflict in the Middle East. But it's very tricky in Iran because as long as the regime is in power, they're going to continue to be a problem. The issue with the president is when can he claim victory and how can he claim victory and get out and say, we've annihilated their nuclear facilities, we've reopened the Straits of Hormuz. Iran has found a way to play mischief with the world. They've held the entire world hostage over the Straits of Hormuz and our energy supply.
I want to get your thought on this before I let you go. I know how you feel about Vladimir Putin. The Kremlin is now saying that he could potentially come to Miami for the G20. They just put out a statement. Let's put it up on the screen. They write, President Putin may go to Miami as a member of the G20, or he may not go, or another Russian representative may go. But the fact that they're saying that he might make his way to U.S. soil, you think it's going to happen? You think it's a smart idea?
Well, I always think it's a good idea for heads of state to sit down and talk, but he has to be serious about a deal with Ukraine. He has to be serious about a security agreement that is ironclad, that if we reach that agreement, he vows to never invade Ukraine again. Unlike, the agreement they have where Ukraine gave up all of its nuclear weapons and then Russia invaded Ukraine. We can't have that again.
Congressman Michael McCaul, always great to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Great insight. Thank you so much.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.